Welcome to the third module, Web3 architecture, the most important part of the entire curriculum. In this module, we will have a look at how the Web3 infrastructure is built, layer by layer. But before we start, I just wanted to say that I'm really impressed by how far you've already come, because we covered quite a lot in the first two modules. And I want to just mention here that this module will be much more advanced. It will be much more technical, and it can feel quite overwhelming. And I just wanted to tell you that it's okay to feel overwhelmed. And I would like to encourage you to take your own approach, to go at your own pace and rewatch the videos, read the additional written content, look at the resources that we are providing so that you can feel really confident with what we are talking about. And also, don't forget to use the Discord channel where you can get support from other fellows during the course or also from our team. Before we talk about the Web3 infrastructure and try to understand how it works, let's have a look at the typical Web2 architecture infrastructure. And we will use an example of AirBnb, a platform that I'm sure you know or you probably also used yourself. And I will show you how it works at the end of the video. But before that, let's actually try to understand the infrastructure first, learn the new vocabulary. And what we will be talking about is the client-server communication, the client-server infrastructure. And whenever you hear about a client or a user client, then you should think about your own computer or actually a browser. It can also be a browser on your mobile phone like Firefox, Chrome, or Safari. And as we saw on Airbnb, whenever you want to access something on the internet, like a website, your browser will make a request to a different place to receive back information that it can later on display to you. And this request is sent to something called a server. Server is a device or a computer program which is managing the access to centralized resources or services. So basically, it talks with a place that is storing data or it talks to another computer program. In order to provide you with a specific resource like the photo, the server will then talk to a database. Database is an organized collection of structured information. So basically, it's a place where the data is stored. Once the data is retrieved by the server, it will pass it back to the browser. So then you can properly view the website you are visiting. And I know that this is already quite a lot. We've seen a lot of tools, we learned new vocabulary. But the thing to remember about this slide is that whenever you paste an URL address in your browser or click a link, you are making a request. Request is then processed by the centralized server through then talking to other programs or a storage. It can receive some resources that then can pass back to you, to your browser, as a response. And then that response is processed by the browser and displayed to you in a nice way. So also you might have heard things like frontend, and you should assimilate that with the user client, with the browser. There's also infrastructure and backend, which sit together with a server, and then the storage. So all different databases that are holding information. If we look at each part of the process separately, then the client and frontend is what you see and what you interact with. The server and the backend is where the logic lives, where the code that decides what to do is. It's also where the hardware is, so big servers, big computers enabling that communication. And also, most usually, these servers are owned by one big company, which is controlling the entire communication process. Lastly, the database and the storage. This is where the data lives, and this is also a place that can be only accessed by a couple of people or a couple of devices. It is also usually controlled by the company which owns the infrastructure, which is allowing the storage. Something worth mentioning here is that there are a couple of companies that are actually controlling majority of the information that we can access on the internet. And I'm sure that you heard about Google Cloud, Azure, or for example, AWS. These are the companies which hold the control of the massive part of the World Wide Web. And one of the biggest promises of blockchain is that it allows to take that control away from those giants through using decentralized solutions. And in the next video, we'll actually have a look at how it's possible and how the Web3 architecture is built. Let's have a look at the browser. We are currently on the Airbnb.com website. And what we can see here is a really nice interface that allows us to select some filters, scroll through the page, view photos of the available accommodations, and basically to go through the entire booking process. You may think it's pretty straightforward, but actually there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes that we don't really see here. We can have a look at them through something called the inspector or the developer tools module. And what I will do right now is that I will right click and select the inspect, which will open a new panel in my browser. And it might feel a little bit complicated, but don't worry, we will have a look at the most important parts, and I will also explain what individual parts do and what do they mean. So in general, the developer tools panel is something that you as a user don't normally use. However, this is the playground for the developers who are actually building the websites for you. When we open it up on the right side, what we can do is to actually move it to the bottom so it's more readable. So you can click on the three dots and then on this icon here, which will move it down. And as you can see, we have different tabs, starting with elements, which shows us the structure of the website. So this is the HTML of the document. The other thing is a console where you can play with the JavaScript, which makes this website interactive, and lots of other functionalities. Like, trust me, there is plenty. However, this is not the main topic of the video. And what we want to look at is the network tab, where we will be able to see what is happening behind the scenes when you interact with the website. So within this box here, what we will see is a certain communication process that is happening whenever we do something on the website. What I will do, I will refresh the page, and please have a note at what's going on right below my camera view. So refreshing. And as you can see, things started happening here, which is a timeline of the communication that is going on since the refresh, and also a list of different messages that were sent throughout that time. So I'll click on all so we can see everything that happened. And what you can see here is basically the communication from the perspective of our browser. So what my browser did is that it sent a request to something in the background from the Airbnb.com in the moment when I refreshed the page. So when I basically pasted the URL in the address box, which is the thing here, and it asked to receive the content that it can then display on the website, so then I can interact with it as a user. Let's have a look. What you can see here are chronological messages, requests sent from the browser, and we can click on the first one. What it will do, it will open another window on the right side, and let's have a look at the headers. We're looking now at the headers of a request that we sent. So what happened is that from the URL airbnb.com, we sent a GET request. GET meaning, hi, I would like to receive some information back. I would like to get some information back. And that request received the status code of 200. Status code is the information that tells us if the request was successful or if something went wrong or also if something happened in the meantime. You can for now focus on the 200, which means that everything is okay. But if you want to have more background, you probably also know the 404 status code, which tells you that, sorry, this website doesn't exist. I couldn't find that particular URL. Or also 500, so 500, which means that there is an issue on the developer side. Something happened in the background and you have to visit the website again in some time to see if the problem is already fixed. Anyway, let's finish on the status codes and move to the actual request. So we've sent that message somewhere, or actually the browser sent that message. And what it received back is the response. And we can have a look at it in the preview tab. And what we got here is the HTML document. HTML is a structure of our website. So basically it contains all the different elements that you can see here, and it tells them where they should position themselves within that website. Based on that, the browser can then build the content, make further requests for individual items, like for example, images. And if we will have a look at all the requests here, you can see that there are lots of requests happening, some weird names with .js. If we go down, there are also some images, and it's difficult to actually figure out what is what. But the browser is actually built in a way where we can filter those requests. So let me click on the IMG images filter, which will show us only the requests for specific photos. Because thanks to the HTML structure, the browser knows what is the name or the location of a particular image somewhere in the background. And we can see that here we have the very readable name of an image with the JPEG file type extension. And if I will click on it, what is happening on the right side is that in the preview tab, I can now see it's an image of a house. And now let's actually have a look at the Airbnb website, which we can have here on the top. And you can see that within the listed accommodations, we have exactly the same image as we received throughout the communication process. If I will click on something else, let's say this URL, and scroll down in the preview, you can see another beautiful cabin house, which then we can also find on the website. So this way you can see that the browser will request for different resources, which it will then receive back, and it can use it, display it in a nice way on the interface of the web page.